U.S. intelligence agency mind control.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I've stopped giving a shit about this video.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be bad.
Yeah. It's very average, very mediocre. Oh my god. I got it. Next.
Bonjour, my name is Alice. Welcome back to my channel. I want to start this video by reading you a tweet that was published by Political Europe in September 2022. So in
Hey, I just put this video
I
on
don't give
there.
a fuck because Twitter's not a real place.
went to join her local branch of the far-right Youth Front in Rome. All male group of radicals met her with bemusement.
I was gonna
right?
I was gonna put a different one on, but I took it off. So I'm glad that you put this on because I saw it last minute.
30 years later, Giorgia Meloni is on course to become Italy's first female prime
I'll be
minister.
back.
I could end the video here, to be honest, but I'm not going to do that because we have a lot of other thinking to do together. So here we go. What I like about this tweet is that it is the perfect example of the fact that a lot of people have no clue what feminism is. In that case, we're dealing with liberal media that romanticizes Giorgia Meloni's rise as a fascist girl boss. Hashtag go girl, hashtag representation matters. Now, the reason why I titled this video how liberal feminism turned into fascism isn't to say that every single liberal is a fascist in disguise. Easy can be a bit reductive and counterproductive in my opinion. However, it is true that centrism, liberalism, loves to resist polarization by seeking a middle ground. In order to do that, they look at the variety of opinions voiced on mainstream media. That's what we call the overtone window, meaning all the ideas and opinions that are deemed acceptable at a given time in the media. Now that overtone window changes with time. It may be more on the left, it may be more on the right. That's why when we talk about liberals seeking a middle ground, we have to keep in mind this idea of the overtone window. The middle ground that YouTube channels like Jubilee and liberal media in general seek at all time is not a middle ground among all the opinions that exist. It's a middle ground among all the opinions within the frame of that overtone window. If the overtone window is more on the right, then the middle ground will also be more on the right and vice versa. That's why many scholars, commentators argue that there is no such thing as centrism. Centrism is always relative to the state.
There's also nothing as left and right.
And I know that I chose that as my intro, so maybe a lot of you are already gone, but anyway. So the variation of the overtone window means that an opinion that was once deemed problematic can become neutral, acceptable over time. Let me give you a clear example. In Collapse Feminism, I write about liberal writer Richard Reeves, who wrote a book on the plight of the modern man. Maybe you've seen his face already. He's been interviewed on various YouTube channels and the videos have gone viral. So in the book, he argues that we have reached a point in history where gender inequality might not be as black and white as it used to be, or might even be reversing itself. To make the statement, he used data showing that boys are underperforming at school, that they don't go to university as much as girls do, that men, black men specifically, are more likely to go to jail, etc., etc. Now, while all these facts are true and verified, Riff's decision to group them all and analyze them as part of a bigger phenomenon of reversal of gender inequality is a choice. In fact, the idea that gender inequality is reversing itself or that matriarchy is on the rise has emerged a long time ago in men's rights movements. It remained a niche idea, a sort of conspiracy theory shared by small groups of men, until the manosphere grew online and spread this idea in the media. And now Jubilee makes middle ground videos about it, so that means that we are now in the overtone window. This idea is now deemed acceptable. From now on, the belief that matriarchy is on the rise became a valid framework from which to think, to write, to theorize, and that's how you end up with this book, written by a respectable liberal, praised by establishment media, giving credit in the liberal aesthetic to an idea that emerged and remains a manosphere's conspiracy theory. This video is precisely about how this phenomenon...
What an interesting theory. Like for a video, like a thesis for a video, sorry.
expands in feminist spheres.
Oh my God, for the love of God, let me finish the sentence, man.
The only satisfaction may be that the system is working.
Hillary Clinton jump scare.
How liberal feminism turns into fascism and what we can do about it. Okay, let's go. So earlier this month, Palestinian politician Mustafa Barghouti on Talk TV over the war on Gaza, and this is what she said.
Oh my God, for the love of God, let me finish the sentence, man.
Frage,
but I'd like to finish the sentence, sir. Anyway.
So as many have already pointed out,
that was fucking awesome. How have I not seen that before? That's great.
That's that guy's media strategy, though.
Oh, just
like
talking
she's
over
projecting.
people.
She's projecting. So that guy literally, like, they had him on after October 7th, and he has to sit there and defend Hamas. So his
Interesting.
strategy is just to overwhelm them and talk over them because he's defending the indefensible. It has nothing to do with sexism. He's actually pretty good. He does make. He's from the Palestinian Authority or ex-Palestinian Authority, but he's
Oh,
now
really?
like he does like lip service for them and the
Interesting.
Palestinian cause. But he's very combative in these interviews like that, and he's able to shut people down and twist them in knots. So she's
Oh, so
mad because he's doing it well, because he knows how to do it. That's the whole point of that guy.
Interesting.
She's now doing the, this is not like I saw a thumbnail earlier, and you already know what type of video it is, okay?
Mhm.
So it was like, I think it was Daily Wire,
Yes.
and the caption, it's got it's not Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, right? And a girl, and she's mad on the thumbnail, and it's like she's mad she's not being paid as much as Chris Pratt, right? So like,
yes.
like I do not give a fuck.
Mm.
But that's the like that type of thing where it's like you're not paying me because I'm a woman type thing.
Yeah.
The projection that video is making is like one of the things that seems to be more of a reality in that specific scenario, arguing with that guy who's a representative of the Palestinian Authority.
Yes. Yeah.
Behavior is completely inappropriate. She utilizes
You should see his
feminism for
defense
racist
on October
purposes
7th.
because
It's
she
pretty
claims that
interesting.
Barghouti won't let her speak because she's a woman. If you watch the full interview, you see that Barghouti struggles to put just one sentence together because he's interrupted all the time. This final attack, an attack on his character, is racist because it is based on the assumption that all Arab men, including Mustafa, are misogynist. In fact, Mustafa didn't say anything sexist. He's not known for his sexism. So this assumption is solely based on racist biases. Julia assumes that all Arab men are misogynist, that it is in their essence. Actually, the idea of essence, essentialism, is going to be a common thread throughout this video because a lot of the people we are going to talk about kind of share this idea. Just to make it clear, essentialism is the belief that
I called it.
objects or
Just
people
because
are
I
separate
knew
from
one of the people in that situation, I knew that what she was doing was total horseshit.
Interesting.
that are necessary to their identity. A table wouldn't be a table if it did not have legs, and in that case, in Julia's head, misogyny is part of Arab men's identity. Now, feminists who have essentialist biases are more likely to believe that in order to change these men, in order to remove that misogyny, we need to bring them closer to Western values. We need to take them away from their Arab identity. That is what sociologist Françoise Vergès called civilizational feminism. To put it simply, civilizational feminism establishes a hierarchy between a civilized pro-human rights culture and civilized barbarous cultures. It's basically neocolonialism, sugar-coated with pastel progressivism. You see it very clearly in Julia's interview of Mustafa. When she shouts at him that maybe he's not used to see women talking, she seeks to establish a hierarchy between her civilized pro-feminism culture, Western culture, and Mustafa's uncivilized misogynist culture. She tells him, hey, this is my show, I'm the one in power here, this is Western TV, so you're going to behave the way we do here. That sort of behavior reminds me to a lesser degree of another feminist, girl boss, Hillary Clinton. In her UN speech in 1995, she declared, human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights. Clinton has long been seen as a feminist icon, especially during the 2016 election against Trump. Many saw the election as a cultural war moment, opposing masculine values of dominance and self-reliance, so Trump, to feminine values of care and selflessness, Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton...
Care and selflessness are two words I would never associate with Hillary Clinton. Ever.
Clinton is an advocate for women's rights. I won't deny that. But the way her feminine values are used to
these people's names are
downplay violent
green.
acts is problematic to me. Here is a little list of all the bad things that she's done.
And
This
they're
is
able to
counterculture
use the
happening right now.
custom
So she
emote,
voted
which
for the
is just
Iraq
two
war. She said she regretted
exclamation
it in
points.
2016, but she also backed the humanitarian war in Afghanistan. She
What is
greenlit
the
killer
custom
drones
emote?
in Pakistan, Yemen, and
It's
Somalia.
that green exclamation point. It's the only one in there. It's the default.
Oh,
But their names turned green in the
in the chat.
in the chat.
Huh.
Actually, they're all different colors. They're different colors of green.
Weird.
Are names just always different colors?
I think so.
Okay, never mind. But they
No,
can
you
use that. I'm pretty sure that's a paid emote.
I have no idea. I haven't had a minute to look at it.
Yeah,
She's
always supported Israel's war on Palestine.
I'll do it all. I'll do it all tomorrow.
How do we make them?
I think it's just JPEGs. I think it's just transparent JPEGs.
Vectors?
Sure, whatever that word means.
See, you might not be able to make them if you don't know what a vector is.
I don't know anything about this stuff.
A vector is like more. Oh, look, it's even saying the graphic software that I use is how you have to make them.
Okay,
Oh, it says you can make them with Capwing.
great. Perfect then.
She facilitated a lot of defense contracts with many countries around the world, and she supported coup makers in Honduras. So that is what sociologists call visible violence. You see it, it kills people, it destroys infrastructures. But Clinton is also a fervent advocate of neoliberalism, a system that produces a lot of structural violence in the form of deprivation of basic human rights like access to housing, food, job, healthcare, etc., etc. So I wouldn't say that Hillary Clinton is pushing for those feminine values, whatever that means. Because she is a woman, we refuse to see Clinton's act as violent. Because she's a woman, that violence is coded as peacemaking or being pro-human rights. Now, this is going to be interesting. Sociologist
disagree.
Colleen Cardy looked at the way
I
girls
have
who
a
committed
specific
crimes
theory
were
about Hillary
treated.
Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
She's overcompensating. So it's
Because Bill.
No, because she's a woman. So we see this. We saw this in like women in politics. They have to be like bloodthirsty and cutthroat
To get anywhere, yeah.
and that's in America because of the society we have cultivated. So I
Yes.
think that her response isn't feminist at all. It's still a response to a
masculine.
patriarchy, though.
Yes, but her response is in and of itself masculine.
Yes, it's overcompensating to be more brutal. It shows that she's insecure.
Yeah. Yes, actually, yeah.
You know, and that's why I think like Elizabeth Warren, as cringe as she is, she's far better
not
than
insecure.
Hillary. You know, like I'd vote for Elizabeth Warren way before I'd vote for Hillary. Like I think, you know, Elizabeth Warren is a good person, actually. Very rare will I say that about politicians. You know?
Native American.
By the justice system in comparison to boys. She explains that boys are more likely to be sent to prison and girls are more likely to go to education centers. The reason for that, she says, is that the judicial system and society in general struggles to see girls and women as capable of violence. The response to violence is therefore to change their behavior through education to bring them back to their supposedly natural state, a docile state. Boys, on the other hand, are believed to have a natural tendency to be violent. Because of that, education isn't prioritized. Punishment, on the other hand, is often presented as the only answer to tame those natural violent impulses. Now, this allows me to move on to this tweet from French historian, and it says, Lucille Pétavin. It says, "The violence of man, again." So this tweet followed a series of riots that happened in France in 2023
Oh my God.
after the killing of Arab teenager.
Wow.
What?
As she did the on-screen translation, it just clicked that encore just means again. That's so funny.
Nail by a police officer. So a lot of teenage boys from low-income areas went to the streets and expressed their anger in violent ways. Now, who is Lucille Pétavin, and why am I interested in that tweet in particular? Well, Pétavin gained legitimacy on the French media scene after she published her feminist essay, The Cost of Masculinity. In it, she showed how the violence of men costs a lot of public money and therefore should be better tackled by authorities. The problem with Pétavin's book, and there are a lot of problems actually. Leo from Les Vidéos de Leo made an entire video about it, a brilliant video. So I'm going to share with you the main points, but I highly recommend that you go check out his work if you speak French and support what he does. So it starts with the assumption that girls' education, so the way they are socialized, is good, and boys' education is bad. That statement in itself doesn't seem too bad, right? Well, yes and no. So it's not too bad because it is true that girls are encouraged to develop qualities like patience, care, which are objectively good, right? But it's still quite bad because these attributes are revealing of the nature of the education of girls. An education to submission. That is one of the core arguments of Simone de Beauvoir.
Yeah, so
in The
like
Second
I
Sex.
think
Maybe
one of the
quote.
things that you can make a strong argument, because I've
Yeah.
always been against like gendered toys and shit.
Yeah.
Well, so a strong argument that I think you can make is when you have male to female people, there's like not so much stereotypes but trends that they're kind of into the same thing, like Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
Right? So it shows that these are qualities that are not determined by sexual orientation, gender, or biological sex. Right? So like
Yeah.
these traits were like brought into them because they were raised as boys.
Well, yeah, it's the culture around it, sure.
So that's you know what I'm saying?
That's definitely a factor of it, of course. I mean, look at like we haven't released it yet. Like we need to record news tomorrow as well. Okay, tomorrow's going to be a busy day.
I mean, I can't record tomorrow, so
That's fine. I'll script it tomorrow. That works. I'll script it tomorrow. That's fine. Remind me what I was talking about.
mommy. I was talking about trans girls liking Fallout New Vegas.
That doesn't help.
Well, sorry, sucks to suck.
Yeah, it does. Oh well, continue on.
One is not born but becomes a woman. Sociology
What we're talking to Anarch about it. He brought up the example of the monkeys. What was the group of monkeys that was observed to socially eliminate violence after the violent members were killed out by tuberculosis because they ate tuberculosis food. And the baboons, yeah, and they have remained that way ever since. So it's and his response was, "Are we dumber than baboons? Are we less socially advanced than baboons to think that we can't change?" And I think that's a perfect argument.
Also, you want to know a fact that I learned from Fox News coping?
Go on. They're always the best.
I don't know
ones.
if this is one specific poll or many, but 80% of men say their wife controls the household.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Right? So we're actually culturally a matriarchy, and this happens. So like, passport bros, right? So they go to these Asian countries thinking they're going to get a trad wife. Guess who runs the household traditionally in those countries, buddy?
Women, yeah.
You're in for a surprise.
Yeah. No, they I've spoken to a friend of mine about this. She's from the Philippines, and she basically runs her house. And I've spoken to her about these exact people. Because she wasn't aware of it. She just lives in her own world. She's, offline normie type of person. But she, like, if these guys are looking for some submissive, quiet, sort of a way out of the way Asian wife, they're not going to find it there. They're very independent. They're very strong-willed. You will lose. Especially the Filipinos. They'll fuck you up. They're very persistent.
Sociologist Manon Garcia explained that de Beauvoir wanted to show that the path to become a woman is a path towards submission. Submission to a father, a husband, the biological clock. A woman is not born submissive. She becomes submissive through education. So when Pétavin and many other feminists
that's what I'm saying. It's like, so like, when somebody starts transitioning, they're already like, you normally are going to be far enough into like the liberal verse that you're already against gender roles to begin with, so you don't buy into needing to play with dolls. Not like anyone's going to play with dolls when they're a doll. I'm just using an example, right? But at the same time, have you heard of the toy thing with monkeys? What they did with monkeys?
No.
Monkeys, depending on gender, have a preference in what toys they play with.
Really?
So the females are more likely to play with dolls.
Huh.
And the boys are more likely to play with things in this surveyed monkeys. But I'm not sure if they're wild monkeys.
That is very interesting. I wonder why that could be, because there's like, because I genuinely believe that there's an inherent nature within most men.
A lot of monkey societies are gendered.
Yeah.
So, like, if they're adult monkeys and they're guys, they've probably already been pushed away from, because the men will kill the babies to get the women to mate in a lot of different species.
Yes. Yeah.
So they've probably already been pushed away because of that.
Mm.
And that might be like more of their dissociation with
Yeah, maybe.
things that like look like
Maybe.
people, like dolls and stuff. Who knows?
I don't know. I still think that there's like an inherent nature that most guys are inherently drawn to do stuff with things as opposed to with people. And I that women are more inclined to be more
Yeah,
personable.
I think that's all brought in from our society, though.
It could be. It genuinely could be. But I say
Like, I think the
most-
whole reason the woman runs the household in Asia is because it's associated with child raising,
possibly.
and
It's
like the
definitely not a
men don't
respect
raise the
thing.
child. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely not a respect thing. It's
Yeah,
definitely
the
not
nobles
a
are matriarchal.
yeah. It's definitely not a yeah girl boss thing. It's definitely a you don't work kind of thing.
I'd have to look what monkeys were done in the toy study and like how it was done, but
And I mean, talking about Japan, I mean, Korea, I think China might be the same, but I'm not 100%. But Korea and Japan,
see, okay, so there's
the divide
controversial
is
studies.
growing because of this. Because women want more autonomy. They want to be doing stuff. They want to be. They want careers. They don't want to be homemakers, really. Especially in these Asian countries and especially in Japan, where it's post-fascism, right? There's still that patriarchal culture that they're fighting with. Add in the warlord culture before that, the isolationism, how ingrained that must be inside Japanese culture. It's going to require a massive cultural shift that needs to happen quickly.
Study from February 2023. As interest in evaluating sex differences in non-human animals grows, the finding that male and female monkeys have toy preferences that differ and parallel those documented in human children has garnered significant attention and is leveraged as an argument in favor of biological contribution for human sex differences. To date, however, only 2 studies have investigated sex differences in monkeys' toy preferences, both documenting that males prefer toys to be considered masculine things, such as vehicles, and females prefer toys considered to be feminine, such as dolls. Monkeys in these studies were tested in their social groups, making it hard to determine if the sex differences reported reflect actual individual preferences or as a result from social dynamics at the time of testing. So this paper is called "Monkeys Do Not Show Sex Differences in Toy Preferences Through Their Individual Choices." So
very, very interesting.
Like I said, it probably has conditions on why that happened.
Yes, and because it's so ingrained, and again, it goes back to what I was saying about Japan and why they particularly have these sort of because I whenever someone says the stereotypical like Asian wife thing, it's like submissive thing. I'm like they're talking about that anime Japan childlike
passport
thing.
bros. That's what they
Right.
think is going to be there.
Yeah, so
Girls
that's
who just say "new" and then pee on the floor.
yes, that's exactly right. That's what I picture when they say that shit.
I picture a guy jacking it to lolicon.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly right.
If these guys were actually cool, they'd just be Dave Cat. Chat, do we remember who Dave Cat is?
Do we need to play the video?
What video?
Huh?
What video?
I think it's the girls one, right?
Nope. That's
No?
again, like last time, that's Joe Cat.
Whatever.
Dave Cat
don't
is
know
a much different person.
I don't know who that is then. Distracting.
What they glorify is
Back to the
medication
French
to
girl.
submission.
Look, it's
They
not
consciously,
French.
No,
Dave
back to the
Cat-
French
demand
girl.
Dave Cat
all
is way
adoptions
more
attitude to
based than
submissiveness.
people
The
who are
topic of
passport
insecurity and crime
bros,
is a
okay?
recurring theme in Peter Book. She establishes that male violence, a product of toxic masculinity, is very costly. It physically hurts people that needs to be taken care of. It destroys infrastructures that need to be rebuilt. And in her TED Talk, she explains that half of the population, so women, have a solution to this problem. See the assumption that women are essentially good, women are not capable
We
of violence.
want her to come on the show. Don't be mean. I was already mean in the first video. We're talking about how French sucks and brought us nationalism and shit. She'd be a great guest to have on. We also haven't had a specifically female guest to talk about women's issues since the second episode, so I think it's time. So I think she would be a good one. Go spam her with messages on Instagram. Comment on her shit.
Anyway, so her idea is
'Cause I
that
don't
if
think she
only men
uses
could
Twitter.
behave like women, so if only men could be as submissive as women, then insecurity would go down and everybody
She
would live
does.
in a happy
gonna
world.
check.
Now, again, just to make it clear, I'm not saying that feminine values of care and emotion management are bad. No, I'm rather interested in how, in the process of glorifying those values,
You're gonna
we
learn
glorify
Dari
submission
and join the
seek to
TV.
impose
Bad
it on
news
others.
for you. The
This rhetoric
Taliban do
of
not
achieving
speak
obedience
Dari.
through education has been taken on by the government. Our new hot gay prime minister, you seem to all love him abroad. You need to chill, seriously. Well, he's a true believer in that. When he was
In
Minister of
fact, they kill
Education,
people who
Patel was
speak it.
all about enforcing discipline and obedience instead of actually tackling the root causes of why there is so much disrespect for educators. Let's go back to Peter Van's tweets because we have another problem.
She does
When
not-
Peter Van tweets the violence of men,
She does not use Twitter.
again, in response to the riots after the killing of Nell, she does the exact same thing as Richard Reeves, the guy I mentioned earlier. As researchers, they choose to focus on masculinity, its toxicity for Peter Van, and its crisis for Reeves to explain societal problems. Both explains that it is because of their gender that men behave this or that way. But is it really? Okay, let me ask you a question.
Oh,
What is male violence? Or patriarchal violence, if you want to be a bit more technical? How would you define
married
it?
to a
Well,
doll.
sociologists
Cool.
explain that it is the violence perpetrated by men and meant to reassert male domination over society. It can be physical, it can be non-physical. The goal remains the same. It is meant to assert that men are in power and will stay in power. Now, do you think that the teenage boys and men coming from low-income areas in Paris who went in the streets and destroyed a bunch of things did it because they wanted to reassert male domination over society? Not really. Their violence targeted public infrastructures. It was about class. It was about race. It was about showing to the world what it feels like to be treated as nothing, as if your life doesn't matter, quite literally.
Ah.
Now, some will say, Alice, if it was just about class and race, then women would have joined. Well, that's right. It's a combination of different factors that brought those men in the streets. I mean, we've seen it times and times again in times of conflict. Men go out, they fight, they are violent, and women stay at home, they cry, they ask for peace. I mean, this is reflected in what this journalist said on TV, quoting another journalist. Quote, "I didn't see the portrait of an insurrection, but rather a group of young men who for any reason turned to violence." For any reason. We're talking about the killing of a working class teenage boy by a police officer. I mean, this is wrong. This is not feminism. You see, the big issue with that sort of feminism, bourgeois feminism, is that it does not see class. Even if they pretend to,
30-second
progressive,
penalty.
are always drawn back to their
I
own
was just about
biases
to
as
say, she said the
respectable,
word.
civilized women who stay quiet,
We gotta-
docile, and won't
She's
ask.
No.
French, though.
And
She
because
is
of that,
French, though.
bourgeois feminism has
It is
a
a-
tendency
it's a
to
French
find-
word.
Ah! She went into it again. She said
Hold
it
on.
twice.
She is analyzing it. She's not using it as the way they
She
do.
is French.
And she
so.
is French. Chad,
It's
do we give her
allowed
a
if you're
pass?
French. I think
Chat,
it's
do we give
allowed
her a
if you're
pass?
French.
I don't know about that. I think it has to depend on context, and the context that we're hearing it in is an analytical.
I think she's using it in the same context everyone else.
Proportionately targets black men. She showed that the combination of
30
full
seconds.
Let
material
it be
conditions
noted,
is
let it
lack
be
of
noted,
employment,
Alice,
health-
when you don't watch this, because you never will, that I was the one who argued for you.
We got to keep it even. You got to keep it even. It's got to got to be fair.
and safe housing combined with bigotry, meant that black men are overrepresented among persons accused of violent crimes relative to their representation in the US population. In fact, the exact same thing happened for Irish immigrants in England in the 20th century. As journalist Fintan O'Toole explains, some of the overrepresentation of Irish citizens in English crime statistics may have been down to prejudice, but most of it was undoubtedly a reflection of social reality. The main cause was obvious. Groups of young men lived together
Poverty.
in poor quality, overcrowded accommodation and worked like dogs on building sites during the week. Going to the pub at the weekends and getting tongued up was their outlet. Understanding the complex ways in which the violence committed by men is exercised.
Wait, you mean to
but
tell me that
understanding
the
it's not
Irish
just
aren't
about
drunk stereotypes?
manhood is necessary if we really want to build a more peaceful, equal society. At the same time, it is crucial
No.
not to neglect women's
Jack's the
capacity
one
for
being the
violence.
cop.
We talked about Hillary Clinton, Meloni, and other girl bosses who use their identity as women to appear less violent. But on the other hand, there are also countless examples of feminist revolutionaries like Emma Goldman, the English and Irish suffragettes, including Christabel Pankhurst, Harriet Tubman, Lakshmi Bai, who resisted British rule. These women who stood up against oppressors were pro-violence. When something is unjust
True.
and has been unjust for a very long time, when a community or person has been consistently discriminated against, then where, I mean, of course, anger and violence will emerge. We cannot impose peace. We cannot tell people to just be docile and call it feminism. We have to build peace together. We have to understand the
No.
root causes of anger, violence, dehumanization that so many of us feel. And that might necessitate a little bit of violence in the form of protest, direct action, civil disobedience, which are still kind of cute when you compare to other things that happened in the past, like the enslaved people rebellion in Haiti, the suffragettes' bombs, or the beheading of French monarchs. I'm just saying, we're very cute these days. Now, this was supposed to be the
That's
end of the
true.
video, but then I realized that
Sounds
one
like
layer was
she's
missing.
pro
I need to talk to
beheading
you.
people.
They sure does.
Classic French, am I right?
Pro Haitian revolution too. This is a good sign. Pro revolution.
I mean,
Pro state terror.
I mean, I don't know if the Jacobins were not pro-Haitian
Interesting.
revolution, because they didn't do anything about it. They couldn't, but they didn't do about it until like Napoleon came, and then France came back to Haiti.
There, we've got some questions to ask. Please come on the show. We have questions.
Robespierre based.
About one last female public figure, a self-proclaimed common-sense feminist who has done an incredible job at, one, making manosphere people listen to someone who call themselves a feminist without interrupting them every 10 seconds, and two, using intersectionality
Look
for
at her
conservative
using
purposes.
the computer as like.
Now, this person is called Louise Perry. She has appeared on various podcasts, from Peterson's Daughter and Dad to Chris Williamson's,
Nice
but also
shit.
Ali Abdal's. Louise Perry is the author of The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, A New Guide to Sex in the 21st Century, and she's really good at cultivating her ambiguity. By that I mean that many see her as a feminist. The fact that she supports several pro-family welfare measures, including the improvement of maternity leave, is proof of that. And even in the podcast episode with Michaela Peterson, she shared how cool it was that the conservative conference she was going to very soon would provide childcare, like feminist organizations used to do during their own conferences. Now, this is an interesting point of connection between a pro-family, supposedly right-wing, and pro-social, supposedly left-wing political agenda that we need to be careful about. Because what Perry does is that she creates an intersection between class struggle, so having access to social benefits on the one hand, and feminism, having access to maternity benefits on the other hand, to encourage the preservation of the nuclear family. So I feel like things are pretty clear now. Throughout this video, we looked at the many ways bourgeois feminism can turn into authoritarianism. It does so when it refuses to look at complex social dynamics, class or race, and replace it with essentialist assumptions. It does that as well because it
So I'm still going to argue that she's not using it in the same context as the other people who use it. Because she's talking about basically Western feminism.
She's talking about elitist.
Yeah. Like we're
That is
talking
the same
corporate
context.
feminism.
Okay, so now who's the good cop? So you're playing both the good cop and bad cop now?
I'm just talking.
Oh, because you don't want to give her a third offense because then it's permanent ban. Three strikes you're out rule.
relies on the individual as part of the family and therefore put the responsibility on them or their parents to change their negative behavior, not caring a tiny bit about how their material conditions might impact that negative behavior. And finally, it does that because it co-opts feminist language and measures
perfect.
left-wing language and
Glass ceiling feminism. That's fucking perfect. Like just the yeah.
measures to push for a return to the nuclear family. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, the conversation continues in the comment section. Don't forget to like, to subscribe if it's not already done.
You want to know
tell me
whether
to comment. Don't tell me to. Don't. I know that's fake engagement that you want for
you want
comments.
to you want to know where the conversation really would continue
Yeah.
on the show.
Where? Oh.
Ah,
Yeah.
you should come on the show. Please.
Who needs
seems to be really
Angela
hard to
Davis
explain
when you got Miles Davis? Am I right? I heard he pees his pants.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?